The morning after our dream wedding, the sweet taste of bliss turned to bitter ash when my mother-in-law arrived, not with congratulations, but with a shocking six-figure bill for the entire event. The morning tasted like leftover champagne and pure, unfiltered joy. I was curled up on the sofa in our new, sun-drenched apartment, wearing my husband's ridiculously soft t-shirt, nursing a cup of coffee. Liam was in the kitchen, attempting to make pancakes, and the sound of his cheerful, off-key humming was the perfect soundtrack to the first day of the rest of our lives. We were married. After a year of stressful planning, color swatch debates, and family drama, we'd finally done it. The wedding yesterday had been perfect. A blur of white lace, happy tears, and dancing until my feet were raw. Our living room was a testament to that perfection. One entire corner was dominated by what we'd affectionately dubbed Mount Giftmore, a mountain of beautifully wrapped boxes, gift bags, and a delicate white bird cage where guests had slotted cards filled with well wishes and, we knew, generous gifts to help us start our life together. We hadn't even touched it yet. We'd stumbled home in a blissful daze at 2 a.m., kicked off our shoes, and fallen into bed. The plan was to spend today, our first full day as husband and wife, lazily opening everything, reading the cards aloud, and just basking in the glow. It felt sacred, like the final intimate chapter of the wedding celebration, meant only for us. "Do you think your Aunt Carol got us another one of her terrifying ceramic cats?" I called out to Liam, a giggle in my voice. He poked his head around the door frame, a smear of flour on his cheek. "God, I hope so. We could start a whole creepy porcelain army." He grinned, and my heart did a little flip. That was the man I married, the man who could make me laugh about anything. That's when the doorbell rang. It was a sharp, insistent buzz that cut through our peaceful bubble. We looked at each other, confused. We weren't expecting anyone. Our parents and the wedding party knew we had a strict no visitors policy for the day after. "Maybe it's a delivery?" Liam said, wiping his hands on a dish towel as he went to the door. I heard the lock click, and then a voice that made the warm, happy feeling in my stomach curdle into a knot of ice. "Liam, darling, I knew you'd be up. I just couldn't wait to see my two favorite newlyweds." It was my mother-in-law, Brenda. She swept into the apartment like a minor hurricane, all floral perfume and bright, forced cheerfulness. She was impeccably dressed, as always, in a pressed pantsuit, her blonde hair coiffed into a helmet of perfection. Her smile, however, didn't quite reach her cold, assessing eyes. She gave me a quick, bony hug that felt more like a pat-down. "Chloe, dear, you look rested," she said, her eyes flicking over my oversized t-shirt and messy bun with faint disapproval. "Hi, Brenda. This is a surprise," I managed, forcing a smile of my own. "We were just about to have breakfast." "Oh, don't let me stop you," she trilled, her gaze already sweeping past us and locking onto the pile of gifts in the corner. Her eyes lit up with a strange, possessive gleam. "Oh my, look at all this. Your guests were so very generous." Liam, ever the dutiful son, just smiled. "Yeah, it's pretty overwhelming. We were going to open them later today." "Nonsense," Brenda declared, clapping her hands together with a sharp, decisive sound. "There's no time like the present. You two have your honeymoon to pack for. I'll help you get organized. It's the least I can do." Before I could protest, she was a whirlwind of motion. She deposited her designer handbag on our coffee table and marched over to the gift pile. It felt like an invasion. This was supposed to be our moment. Liam shot me a look that was half apology, half helpless shrug. He had never been good at telling his mother no. I swallowed my annoyance, telling myself she was just trying to be helpful. This is what mothers-in-law do, right? They help. But the way she went about it felt wrong. She wasn't cooing over the beautifully wrapped presents or speculating what could be inside. She was working with a cold, terrifying efficiency. She directed Liam to get her a notepad and a pen and 2 large tote bags from her car. "We'll make 2 piles," she announced, taking charge as if she were running a board meeting. "Physical gifts here, cards and envelopes here. I'll make a list of who gave what for the thank you notes, and we can deposit the cash and checks for you. It'll be so much easier for you to have it all taken care of." I opened my mouth to say that we were perfectly capable of taking our own gifts to the bank, but the look on Liam's face stopped me. He was already nodding along, eager to please her. "That's a great idea, Mom. Thanks." So I sat in silence on the sofa, my coffee growing cold in my hands, as my mother-in-law systematically dismantled our wedding gifts. She'd pick up a card, slit the envelope open with a perfectly manicured nail, pull out the contents, and make a neat little note on her pad. If there was a check or cash, it went into one of the tote bags. The card itself was placed in a separate, small pile. The joy of the morning had completely evaporated, replaced by a tense, awkward silence, punctuated only by the rustle of paper and Brenda's occasional, "Oh, how lovely of the Hendersons." She didn't let us open a single gift. If we tried to pick up a box, she'd gently take it from our hands and say, "Let's just get through the envelopes first, shall we? It's more efficient this way." After about an hour of this, one of the large tote bags was bulging with cards. The birdcage was empty. My heart sank as I realized all of our gift money, the money our friends and family had given us to start our future, to put a down payment on a house, was in that bag, in her possession. Finally, she clicked her pen shut and stood up, a satisfied smile on her face. "There, all done. See how easy that was?" "Thanks, Mom," Liam said, looking relieved that the ordeal was over. "You're a lifesaver." "Don't mention it, darling," she said, patting his cheek. Then she picked up the bulging tote bag. She slung its strap over her shoulder, and then, to my absolute horror, she picked up her handbag and started walking toward the door. My brain short-circuited. I couldn't process what was happening. I stood up, my voice barely a whisper. "Brenda, what are you doing? Where are you going with that?" She paused at the door and turned to face me. The fake cheerful mask was gone. Her expression was hard, like chiseled granite. "I'm taking this to the bank," she said, her voice dripping with ice, "to deposit it into my account." The air left my lungs. Liam looked just as confused as I felt. "Your account? Mom, what are you talking about? That's our gift money." Brenda let out a short, sharp laugh that held no humor. She looked directly at me, her eyes boring into mine, and delivered the line that shattered the last remaining fragment of our wedding bliss. "You didn't really think a wedding like that was free, did you, dear? You didn't think my son could afford all of this on his own." She patted the tote bag, the sound of hundreds of envelopes rustling like dry leaves. "This isn't a gift. This is a down payment, the first of many you'll be making to pay me back." She then glanced at Liam, whose face had gone completely white, and a flicker of something unreadable passed between them before she turned back to me, her smile a cruel slash across her face. "And there's the matter of the interest, of course." The words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. For a second, I was sure I had misheard. It was a joke. A sick, twisted, horrible joke, and any moment now she would laugh, hand the bag back, and say, "Oh, you should have seen your faces." But her face remained a mask of cold serenity. Liam was frozen, his mouth slightly agape, the color drained from his cheeks. He looked like a statue of a man who had just witnessed a car crash. "Pay you back?" I finally managed, my voice trembling. "Interest? Brenda, what on earth are you talking about? You and Frank, you offered to help. You said it was your wedding gift to us." Brenda actually scoffed, a little puff of condescending air. "A gift? Chloe, be realistic. The venue alone cost more than your annual salary. Did you truly believe we were just handing that to you? We aren't a charity. We provided a loan to give you the wedding you wanted, or rather, the wedding our family expected. This," she said, patting the tote bag again, "is simply the first reimbursement." My head was spinning. "A loan? There was no loan. We never signed anything. We never agreed to anything." "Oh, but Liam did," she said smoothly, her eyes flicking to her son. I turned to Liam, my heart pounding a frantic, terrified rhythm against my ribs. "Liam," I whispered, "is this true? Did you agree to this?" He wouldn't look at me. He stared at a spot on the floor, his hands clenching and unclenching at his sides. "Mom, this isn't the time," he stammered, his voice weak. "It's the perfect time," Brenda cut in, her tone sharp as glass. "Before you two run off to Italy on my dime, we need to establish the terms." She walked back over to her designer handbag on the coffee table and pulled out a slim, leather-bound folder. She opened it and produced a single crisp sheet of paper. It was a spreadsheet, a meticulously detailed, itemized list of every single wedding expense, from the save the dates to the last glass of champagne served. At the bottom, in bold, was a grand total that made me feel physically ill. "As you can see," she said, holding it out for me to see, though I couldn't focus on the numbers, "the total comes to $123,456.78. I've calculated a very reasonable interest rate of 5%, compounded monthly. Based on the contents of the gift bag, I'll send you the final tally once I've deposited it. We can deduct that from the principal. Then I'll email you an amortization schedule. I expect the first payment on the 1st of next month." I felt like I was going to throw up. The beautiful, perfect day we'd had yesterday suddenly felt like a lie, a sham, a stage production funded by a loan shark who happened to be my husband's mother. "No," I said, finding a sliver of strength from the sheer audacity of it all. "Absolutely not. You can't do this. That money was given to us, by our friends, our family. You have no right to it." I took a step toward her, intending to snatch the bag from her shoulder, but Liam grabbed my arm. "Chloe, don't," he pleaded, his eyes wide with panic. Let's talk about it later, after she's gone." His touch felt like a betrayal, his words a surrender. He was choosing her. In the very first conflict of our marriage, he was siding with his mother over me. Brenda smiled, a thin, triumphant curl of her lips. "Your husband is a wise man. It's best not to make a scene." She adjusted the bag on her shoulder. "I'll let myself out. Do try and enjoy the rest of your day." She cast a disdainful look at the mountain of wrapped boxes still sitting in the corner. "And I'd be careful with those. Most of them came from my side of the family. Consider them collateral." And with that, she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving a void of echoing silence. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The sound of the refrigerator humming was deafening. The smell of the burnt pancakes Liam had forgotten on the stove filled the air. Our perfect morning, our perfect new life, was already turning to ash. Finally, I turned to Liam. My voice was dangerously calm. "Did you know?" He finally looked at me, his eyes filled with a desperate, pathetic guilt. "I knew she was keeping track of the costs. I didn't know she was going to do this." "I swear, Chloe. She mentioned a loan once, months ago, and I told her we couldn't afford that we didn't want it. I thought she dropped it." "You thought she dropped it?" I repeated, my voice rising with disbelief. "Brenda? Your mother, who has never dropped anything in her entire life. You've been lying to me this whole time. Every time I said I was worried about the cost, every time I suggested we cut back, you said, 'Don't worry, my parents have it covered. It's their gift.' You lied to my face." "I was trying to protect you. I didn't want you to be stressed," he yelled back, his own voice cracking. "Protect me. You've trapped me. You've trapped us in a 6-figure debt to your mother on the first day of our marriage." I was shaking with a rage so profound it scared me. I backed away from him, needing space, my eyes darting around the room that suddenly felt like a prison. My gaze landed on Mount Giftmore. The beautifully wrapped boxes now looked like taunts, mocking symbols of a generosity that had been stolen from us. Numbly, I walked over to the pile. I needed to do something, to reclaim some tiny piece of what was supposed to be ours. My hands found the largest, most extravagantly wrapped box. It was from Brenda and Frank. I tore at the paper, shredding the silver foil and white ribbon, my breath coming in ragged gasps. I ripped open the box. Inside was a top-of-the-line, professional-grade espresso machine, the one we'd admired for months but knew we could never afford. It was beautiful, and taped to the gleaming chrome was a small cream-colored gift card. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I expected a generic "congratulations" or "love Mom and Dad." But it wasn't a wedding card. It was a bill. Printed in Brenda's neat, elegant script were just a few chilling words. Espresso machine, $1,299.99. Added to your principal balance. Enjoy. My knees felt weak. I dropped the card as if it had burned my fingers and sank onto the floor amidst the shredded wrapping paper. A strangled, hysterical laugh bubbled up from my chest. It was so absurd, so diabolically petty, that it broke through my rage and plunged me straight into a cold, desolate sense of defeat. This wasn't just about the money. This was about control. Every sip of coffee from this machine would be a reminder that we were owned. Liam rushed over, his face a mask of horror. "What is it? What did it say?" He knelt beside me, picking up the card. I watched as he read it, the last vestiges of his denial crumbling. He stared at the card, then at the gleaming machine, then at me, his eyes wide with a dawning, terrible understanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a calculated, premeditated attack. I can't believe this," he whispered, running a hand through his hair. "This is insane. She's insane." "She's your mother, Liam," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "And you let her do this. You let her walk out of here with thousands of dollars that belong to us, and now she's billing us for our own wedding presents." "I'll fix it," he said, scrambling to his feet. He started pacing, a caged animal in our beautiful new cage. "I'll call her. I'll go over there. I'll demand she give the money back. I'll tell her the deal is off." I didn't even look up at him. "You think that will work? You think a woman who drew up an amortization schedule for her own son's wedding is just going to say, 'Oh, my mistake,' and hand over the cash? You couldn't say no to her when she was standing right here, Liam. What makes you think you can do it over the phone?" He stopped pacing and looked at me, his face crumpled with shame. He knew I was right. He was terrified of her. I'd always known he was a bit of a mama's boy, but I'd thought it was sweet, a sign of a close family. I never realized the closeness was a leash, and now it was wrapped securely around both our necks. The rest of the day was a blur of misery. Our first day as husband and wife. We didn't open any more presents. The sight of them made me sick. We didn't talk about our honeymoon. How could we go to Italy knowing it was on his mother's tab, every glass of wine and plate of pasta being added to our ever-growing debt? Liam made a few half-hearted attempts to call his mother, but they all went straight to voicemail. He left panicked, rambling messages that I knew she was listening to with a smirk. His father, Frank, was a non-entity in all of this. A quiet, browbeaten man who had long ago ceded all power and decision-making to his wife. Calling him would be pointless. He'd just tell Liam to listen to his mother. By evening, we were sitting in virtual silence, the chasm between us on the sofa feeling miles wide. The celebratory champagne from the night before was still open on the counter, its bubbles long gone flat, a perfect metaphor for our marriage. "We have to tell your parents," Liam said quietly, breaking the silence. I flinched. The thought of telling my kind, generous parents, who had scrimped and saved their whole lives and given us what was, for them, a small fortune, that their gift had been confiscated by my new mother-in-law to pay off a secret debt. The humiliation was unbearable. "No," I said firmly, "I won't do that to them. This is our problem." "Your problem, really. You fix it." "How, Chloe? How?" he cried, his voice laced with desperation. "She has all the power here. She has the money. She probably has a contract I don't even remember signing. What can I do?" You can start by being a husband, I shot back, the anger flaring up again. You can start by protecting me, protecting us from her. You should have told me about this from the very beginning. We could have planned for it. We could have had a smaller wedding. We could have eloped. But you let me walk into this trap completely blind because you were too much of a coward to stand up to your mommy. The word mommy hung between us, ugly and accusatory. He recoiled as if I'd slapped him. The fight drained out of me as quickly as it had come, leaving me exhausted and empty. I got up and walked into our new bedroom, closing the door behind me. I couldn't look at him anymore. I couldn't look at our apartment, at the gifts, at the life we were supposed to be starting. It all felt tainted. I spent the next hour numbly packing my suitcase. Not for Italy, but for my parents' house. I didn't know if I was leaving him for good or just for the night. I just knew I couldn't breathe in that apartment. I needed to escape the weight of Brenda's invisible presence in every corner. When I emerged from the bedroom, suitcase in hand, Liam was standing by the window, his back to me. He didn't turn around. "Chloe, please," he said, his voice thick. "Don't go. We can figure this out. Together." "How, Liam?" I asked, my own voice breaking. "How do we start a life together based on such a monumental lie? How can I ever trust you again?" He finally turned, and his face was streaked with tears. "I know I messed up. I know. But I love you, and I will fix this. I promise." Just then, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. An email notification lit up the screen. The sender's name was clear, even from across the room. Brenda. My blood ran cold. "What is it?" I asked. He walked over and picked up the phone, his hand shaking. He read the screen, and his face went from pale to ghostly white. He stared at the phone for a full minute, his eyes wide with a new kind of horror, something beyond the money. "Liam, what is it?" I demanded, walking towards him. "What did she do now?" He looked up at me, his eyes hollowed out, utterly defeated. He held out the phone for me to see. It was the email she'd promised. Attached was the amortization schedule, a neat and tidy PDF, but it was the body of the email that made my world tilt on its axis. "Darling," it began, "here's the payment schedule as discussed. Your first payment is due on the 1st. Also, I've taken the liberty of canceling your honeymoon tickets. With this new debt, a trip to Italy is far too extravagant. Don't worry, I got a full refund. Consider it your second payment. We'll discuss a more affordable vacation option for you two later. Perhaps a weekend in the Poconos? Love, Mom." The Poconos. The sheer breathtaking arrogance of it was a punch to the gut. She hadn't just stolen our money and trapped us in debt. She had stolen our honeymoon. The trip we'd spent months planning, the romantic escape that was supposed to be the glorious, sun-drenched beginning of our married life, had been erased with a few clicks of her mouse, replaced with the suggestion of a weekend in the Poconos, a place I knew she and Frank owned a drab little timeshare. She wasn't just controlling our finances. She was controlling our life, our memories, our future. I looked at the suitcase by the door, then at Liam's shattered face. Leaving now felt like running away, like letting her win completely. A different kind of fire started to burn in my veins, displacing the shock and despair. It was a cold, hard rage. She wanted a fight? Fine. She was going to get one. "Okay," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Liam looked at me, bewildered. "Okay," he repeated. "Chloe, she canceled our honeymoon. She... I know what she did." I cut him off. I walked over to the sofa and sat down, placing my hands on my knees to stop them from shaking. "And you're not going to call her. You're not going to beg. You're not going to do anything." "What? We have to do something." "We are," I said, meeting his gaze. My mind was suddenly crystal clear, the fog of emotion replaced by a sharp, icy resolve. We are going to play her game, but we're going to play it by our rules. I spent the next hour laying it all out. My plan was simple in its execution, but brutal in its implications. For now, we would surrender. Liam would send a short, polite email back to his mother. "Thank you, Mom. We understand. Talk soon." No emotion, no anger, just cold, calm compliance. We would pretend to accept the debt. We would pretend to accept her control. "And the money? The presents?" Liam asked, looking horrified. "We let it go," I said, the words tasting like acid. "For now, the money is gone. The presents are tainted. They're not gifts. They're leverage. And we're going to remove that leverage." The next day was one of the hardest of my life. Instead of packing for Italy, we packed up our wedding gifts. Every last one of them. The espresso machine, the crystal vases, the fine china, the silver cutlery. We drove to a high-end consignment store, the kind Brenda herself frequented, and sold every single item. I watched as the store owner tallied up the value of our stolen future. It wasn't nearly enough to make a dent in the fake debt, but it was a start. It was our money now, not hers. Then we went to our bank. We opened a new joint account, a secret one that Brenda knew nothing about. We deposited the cash from the consignment store. We set up automatic transfers, diverting a significant portion of our salaries into it every payday. On the outside, we would live frugally, as if we were struggling to make her monthly payments. In reality, we would be building a war chest. Liam was hesitant at first. The idea of such deep, calculated deception against his own mother terrified him. But as he saw the steel in my spine, something shifted in him. He saw the woman he married, not a victim, but a fighter. And slowly, he began to fight too. He saw that my plan wasn't just about revenge, it was about survival. It was about taking back our life, one secret deposit at a time. The first of the month came. We transferred the exact amount Brenda had requested from our main, visible account into hers. We even added a little note. "Payment 1 of $360. Thanks for your help." The pettiness felt good. Life fell into a strange, new rhythm. We were a team, united by our secret. We cooked at home instead of eating out. We watched movies on the couch instead of going to the theater. We told everyone we were saving aggressively for a down payment on a house, which wasn't technically a lie. To Brenda, we were the perfect, dutiful children, struggling under the weight of her generosity. Liam's phone calls with her became masterpieces of subdued acting. He'd sigh and talk about how tight money was, how the car needed new tires, how we were so grateful she'd helped us have a wedding we couldn't have afforded otherwise. And Brenda, smug and satisfied, bought every word. She'd offer condescending advice on budgeting and praise us for our newfound responsibility. She had no idea that with every payment we made to her, we were putting double that amount into our escape fund. 6 months passed like this. 6 months of quiet rebellion, of whispered conversations and shared glances over our secret bank statements. We were closer than ever, forged in the fire of her tyranny. The debt was still colossal, but our secret account was growing. We had a goal. We had a plan. We had hope. Then, one Saturday afternoon, Brenda called. Her voice was sweeter than usual, a syrupy tone that immediately set my teeth on edge. "Liam, darling, I have the most wonderful news," she chirped. "Your father and I have decided to sell the house. We're downsizing to a condo on the golf course. It's all happening so fast." Liam put her on speakerphone, his eyes finding mine across the room. "Wow, Mom, that's sudden," he said cautiously. "Yes, and the best part is we've found the most perfect buyer, a lovely young couple just starting out. They remind me so much of you too," she gushed. "They've already made an offer, well over asking. But of course my first thought was of you." A cold dread crept up my spine. I knew where this was going. "What do you mean, Mom?" Liam asked. "Well, darling, your father and I agreed. It's only right that the house stays in the family. We want to give you the first right of refusal. We're prepared to sell it to you, for the exact same price the other couple offered, of course. It's the opportunity of a lifetime," she said. Then she delivered the final devastating blow, her voice dripping with false generosity. And don't you worry about the down payment. We'll just roll what you owe us for the wedding right into the mortgage. It will be so much simpler for everyone." Silence stretched across the line. Liam's hand, holding the phone, was trembling. He looked at me, his face a canvas of pure panic. She had us. Or she thought she had us. It was the perfect trap, cloaked in the guise of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Refuse, and we'd be the ungrateful children who turned down the family home. Accept, and we'd be shackled to her for the next 30 years. Our fake debt transformed into a real mortgage, forever living under a roof that she owned in spirit, if not in name. Every leaky faucet, every chipped paint fleck would be a reminder of her dominion over us. But as I looked at Liam, I didn't just see his panic. I saw the spark of defiance that we had been carefully nurturing for the past 6 months. I gave him a slow, deliberate nod. It was time. The game was over. "Wow, Mom," Liam said, his voice miraculously steady. He was a better actor than I gave him credit for. "That's an incredibly generous offer. We're speechless. We'll need to talk it over, of course. Can we come over tomorrow to discuss it in person?" "Of course, darling," Brenda chirped, barely containing her glee. She had taken the bait. "Come for brunch. We'll have mimosas to celebrate your new home." The minute he hung up, we sprang into action. This was our one shot. We spent the rest of the day at the bank, at a notary, printing documents. We were a well-oiled machine, fueled by adrenaline and 6 months of simmering rage. When we went to bed that night, we didn't sleep. We rehearsed, going over every possible scenario, every line, every counterattack. We were no longer the scared newlyweds she had ambushed the day after our wedding. We were soldiers preparing for our final battle. We arrived at my in-laws' house the next morning at 11 o'clock sharp. The air was thick with smug satisfaction. Frank was beaming and Brenda was gliding around the kitchen, a veritable queen surveying her kingdom, which she was now graciously bestowing upon us. "Mimosas," she trilled, holding up a bottle of champagne. "No, thank you, Brenda," I said, my voice polite but firm. Liam and I sat down at the large dining room table, the same table where we'd had countless awkward family dinners. I placed a thick manila folder on the polished wood between us. Brenda's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "So formal, what's all this?" Liam took a deep breath and looked his mother directly in the eye. For the first time, I saw no fear there, only resolution. "Mom, Dad," he began, "we appreciate the offer on the house. We really do, but we won't be buying it. In fact, we came here today to settle our accounts." He slid the folder across the table to her. Brenda opened it, her brow furrowed in confusion. The first page was a bank statement from our secret account. The final balance was displayed in bold black ink. It was a substantial amount, far more than they could have imagined we'd saved in 6 short months. The next page was a cashier's check. It was made out to her for the full remaining principal of her fraudulent wedding loan. Every last cent. Brenda stared at the check, her mouth opening and closing silently like a fish. Frank peered over her shoulder, his eyes wide. "What? How?" Brenda stammered, looking from the check to us. "Where did you get this money?" "We've been living on half our income for 6 months," I said calmly. "We sold the wedding gifts, all of them. It turns out that espresso machine you so kindly billed us for had a great resale value." A flash of fury crossed her face, but she was too stunned to speak. "We are paying off the loan, in full, effective immediately," Liam continued, his voice ringing with newfound authority. "We are also absolving you of any further financial involvement in our lives. This check settles our debt. We are done." He wasn't finished. He reached into the folder and pulled out another document. "This," he said, sliding it across the table, "is a post-nuptial agreement, drafted by our lawyer. It states that any future financial gifts or loans from you to either of us are legally considered gifts with no expectation of repayment. unless accompanied by a contract signed by both Chloe and myself in the presence of our legal counsel. It also outlines terms of non-interference in our financial and personal lives. Brenda's face had turned a mottled, furious red. A postnup? How dare you? After everything we've done for you. What have you done for us, Mom? Liam asked, his voice raw but strong. You lied to us. You stole from our friends and family. You tried to trap us in a lifetime of debt and control. You didn't give us a wedding gift. You handed us an anchor and expected us to thank you for it. Frank finally spoke, his voice a feeble whisper. Brenda, maybe we should just— Be quiet, Frank, she snapped, not even looking at him. She glared at me, her eyes filled with venom. This is you, isn't it? You put these ideas in his head. You turned my son against me. No, I said, meeting her hateful gaze without flinching. I just reminded him what a marriage is supposed to be, a partnership, a team, something you know nothing about. I glanced pointedly at her husband, who shrank under my gaze. Liam and I are a team, and our team is officially cutting you and your toxic manipulation out of our lives. I stood up, and Liam stood with me. Sign the document, Mom, he said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Sign it, or we walk out that door and you will never see or hear from either of us, or any of your future grandchildren ever again. The choice is yours. The threat hung in the air, heavy and absolute. For a long, agonizing minute, she just stared at him, her chest heaving. She was looking at her son, but she wasn't seeing the boy she had controlled his whole life. She was seeing a man who had finally chosen his wife, his marriage, his future, over her. And in that moment, I saw her break. The fight went out of her eyes, replaced by a cold, bitter defeat. With a trembling hand, she picked up the pen we'd provided and scrawled her signature on the line. Frank quickly followed suit. We took our copy of the agreement, leaving the cashier's check on the table. We didn't say another word. We turned and walked out of that house, leaving the mimosas unpoured and our chains shattered on the dining room floor. As we got into our car, the sun felt warmer, the air cleaner. Liam took my hand, his grip strong and steady. He brought it to his lips and kissed it, his eyes shining with tears of relief. So, he said, a slow smile spreading across his face, I hear Italy is beautiful this time of year. I smiled back, my heart so full I thought it might burst. I think it is, I said, and I know a couple who just came into a little extra cash. We drove away from that house not knowing what the future held with his family, but for the first time since our wedding day, we knew one thing for certain. The future, whatever it was ours to write, and it was going to be beautiful.